I'm Arijit, founder and CEO of Aible. Before this, I taught AI at the Harvard Business School, wrote a book called AI is a Waste of Money, essentially trying to point out why AI projects fail. Dan and I have been very simpatico because he comes at this world from a very practitioner's perspective as well. Dan, you want to add anything about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, folks. I'm Dan Lavender. I work for a company called Ciena. We're an optical networking company. I've been in the AI space since a long time, many years. I have deployed many kinds of AI models up in space with environmental engineering, with finance, with service providers. And so I've seen many different kinds of use cases. And with what I see today is that evolution of the next generation of this with the generational AI. So looking forward to talk with you folks today.
And we'll get to the meat of this very, very quickly. So when you are doing enterprise generative AI, you need to look at things beyond the unstructured data, the search use cases that we started with. Much of your data actually is going to be focused on structured data. That's often 80% of the corporate data by value. And that's not going to change. Your sales data, your CRM data, your logistics data, your inventory data, these are all structured data sets. The problem in the world of structured data is that there isn't an equivalent of the vector database. So we are in the world of doing natural language querying and natural language generation. So the question you put in has to be translatable to SQL. That is not the world of generative AI. The equivalent in the world of on document summarization would be exact search. That's not what you signed up for when you do generative AI. But people are not thinking through what is the equivalent of the vector database, because when you go to structured data, you're looking for statistical insights. You're trying to figure out which charts, which combination of variables statistically significantly impact my outcome. So I can ask a question like, how can I improve sales, and get a legitimate, well-informed answer. Dan, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, as we take a look at that, one of the things we want to be able to do is very quickly ask questions of our insights, not just of the data. The insights are the next layer on top of that. And so as we work through this, we want to get away from that model where we put dashboards up, we put reports up, and folks have to ask questions based on that. We want to be able to make these ad hoc requests, these conversational requests of our insights that allow this to become self-service. Just as we have enabled with BI self-service reporting, we want to be able to build models where our business partners can generate their insights, can ask those questions independent of the data scientists. And these kinds of tools can help us get there.
And how many of you are feeling right now that generative AI is going to slice your bread and toast it too? One of the most important things to understand in science is it's never one technology that solves the problem. So if you fall into this mindset of this one thing will do it all for me, you're missing the point. What you need to look at very, very critically is what does generative AI do well and what it does badly. What it does well is a fantastic autocomplete job, right? It can understand what you want to hear and tell you exactly what you want to hear. It can speak like a human to an extent that we start believing that they're actually in love with us. No, it's just trying to do the darned autocomplete that it thinks you want to see. Does this make sense? So you have to you have to understand that it has no organizational context by itself. And you're not going to do it by retraining the AI, creating your own foundation models, creating your reinforcement learning. That's a very slow process. And it suffers from hallucinations. It'll just make stuff up. And you don't want to take your business decisions based on that. What the information model does is it's an explainable AI. You actually want something that understands your organizational's data. It understands what's changed. That is another problem foundation models get into, is there is no awareness of data over time. So it might get the most recent information, but it doesn't understand that this has changed from last week to this week, or this has changed from last month to this month. And of course, the weaknesses of information models are people have to understand how to interpret them, the thing Dan was talking about. But when you combine the two together, you actually get that business question answering. So Dan, you've been running these experiments, right? Like putting these things in front of business users. What has been the experience?
What we find out is when we build a model, and we build models iteratively, We don't try to build a model perfect the first time. You'll never get there. So we may run a model, we may evolve it hundreds of times to get close to adding business value. When we add the large language models to our AI models that we've built, it allows us to ask questions. What I find that what the users do, my business users, they're afraid to ask a question because they're afraid it'll be the wrong question. My perspective on that is, you're going to get it wrong. Might as well get it over with, ask the question, learn from it, refine the question, and continue to work through that process. And what I find is, as we go through these iterations of asking the questions, using a combination of our AI models and the generative AI on top of those, the users start to create what I call popcorn questions. Ideas pop up in their minds, and they just start asking questions of the data, and they get these insights back that they literally would spend days or months or years to try and get to. They can get those very quickly, refine their questions into the AI model, and become self-supporting on getting insights out of the data.
Then when you say iterations, how long are these iterations taking? Are they taking a week? Are they taking a month?
So when I look at a lot of the traditional waterfalling, I mean, I've got a few years on me. I grew up in the waterfall space, grew up doing iterative pair programming. What I look at from an AI model perspective is I want to iterate as quickly as I can. And those iterations take minutes. That's a big deal, because what it does, it creates an environment where we're less scared about making a mistake. And what we do instead is we iterate through a model, we make mistakes, we learn, we iterate again. And we do that frequently with our customers sitting right next to us. We do that in real time. And all of a sudden you create this partnership where the customer helps you to find the use case, helps you to find the kinds of information you want in your model, and all of a sudden you end up with strong business value very quickly. And literally we iterate in minutes.
And one of the things that comes out of this information model is this idea that a human being will double check the output of generative AI is a very stupid idea. Let me tell you this. The reason it's a stupid idea is it's like the enormous cosmic power of the genie in that itty-bitty living space, right? If the human has to double check everything, then you're no faster than the human. What you need, and by the way, humans will refuse to double check, by the way. They'll either play Russian roulette or they won't use the product. That's what will happen, right? What you have to have is an AI, an explainable AI, double checking the output of the generative AI and highlighting where it got things confirmed, and whatever is not confirmed, the user can then go focus on that. And the user has to have a way to very quickly get to facts that have never gone through a generative AI system. But not by going to their favorite Tableau or Power BI dashboard. They have to be able to get it right where they were working. If you make them go somewhere else to double check, they're not going to do that. So this is the approach we took. If it's blue, it's true. That's the AI double checking. And on the right-hand side of the screen, anything that shows up is always factual, never gone through generative AI, so that the users use the combination of these two things to validate the hallucination. Dan, what is your experience?
As I look at this, we've all said, if it's on the internet, it's true, right? If it's on the internet, it's true. It has to be. If it comes out of a generative model, it's true. I'll give you a great example. I fly powered paramotors. And just for grins, I put into a Gen AI input, how do you learn to fly powered paramotors? And it gave me a beautiful and eloquent set of tasks I needed to do to accomplish that. If I'd have followed that blindly, I literally would have died. That's kind of scary. That's a mistake you really don't want to make. Maybe you're not going to make it twice, but it's just like it's just like what we would do with the internet, where we do research, we try to counterbalance that with other research. Well, a tool such as this allows us to do that, where we take our models with the metadata and we also apply that to the Gen AI. So we're able to look at what is validated versus what should we go look at a little bit more.
And let's move on to the second idea, prompt augmentation. Everybody knows what prompt augmentation is at this point, right? So this is the exact same data set, exact same user query with and without prompt augmentation. Exact same model, by the way. As you can see, the quality of the output can change massively by prompt augmentation. So many of you are right now thinking, we are going to teach our users how to write better prompts, correct? We're going to have these prompt engineers, correct? That's going to solve the problem. Here is the problem. These models evolve, and as the models evolve, your prompts have to evolve. Literally, GPT-4, the changes that have happened over the last 2 months, if you didn't change your prompts, you'd get crappy results. And let me tell you why. How many of you think GPT-4 quality has dropped in the last month?
Yeah.
You can admit it. Nobody's taking pictures of you, right? What is actually happening is generative AI, there's a very simple trade-off between speed and affordability on one side, simpler models that can run faster at lower cost, and better model quality without prompt augmentation. So GPT-4 was on the extreme right of this. It's doing really well, but it's darned expensive to run, and it's really, really slow. It was taking 5 to 10 minutes to respond back. Now it's coming back in 1 to 2 minutes. I'm sure you guys have noticed that if you're using it all the time. All they did is they moved down that curve. But here is the problem. They didn't charge us less while they moved down the curve. That's why people are pissed at them. But if you actually do prompt augmentation correctly, you can take a simpler model like Palm 2 or GPT 3.5 and have it perform as well as a much more complex model. And this is going to be crucial for getting real value out of these systems. The problem is going to be that, as I said, the models will keep evolving. So this is not a human thing you can do. You have to have systems, automated systems, augment the prompt. Dan, what's been your experience? Because you've been playing around with all these different models and stuff.
Yeah, I'm working with a number of different models in addition to Aible. And what I find is I start out with a general prompt, and then I refine that prompt. Just like when I'm working with my customers, we start out with, what were the sales in a particular region? Okay, what were the key things that drove those sales in that region? What are the drivers that reduce the sales in the region? So we start to get more and more specific. Well, with the prompt augmentation, it does a lot of the engineering for us that helps us start to drill down on that. And what I find is as we use this, my customers, my partners, look at those prompts and they say, man, I never even thought of that. And there may be 100 prompts, there may be 1,000 prompts that come back as part of the result set. And what it does is it causes us to do a better job of interrogating, and that's my term, interrogating our insights and allowing our customers to do that on behalf of the models that we've put in place. And what this prompt augmentation does is it helps the model return better insights to begin with, so it sends us farther down that path when we start with the models.
And business users just have a better day zero experience. If your end users don't have a good day zero experience, they will just write it off as, it's not ready yet. You have to do the prompt augmentation before you turn it loose on the business users. The third point we wanted to cover, how many of you have been in this debate of, is it the model or is it the data? The answer is it's neither, actually. It's the end user feedback. In the world of generative AI, the faster you can get to end user feedback, the faster you're going to get to value. The faster you iterate, the faster you're going to get to value. So one of the things we said is like, look, there's this whole complex stack of stuff. This is a slide from Andreessen Horowitz. All this stuff that needs to be orchestrated. Why don't we just automate all of that, use enterprise as code to just run it in the customer's own cloud, so it's inside their secure borders, under their policies, but we just orchestrate it for them. So, and by the way, across multiple clouds, because one of the things Dan really wants, like, I don't want to be stuck on a model cloud combination. I want to use Palm, but I want my data in Azure, right? Dan, anything you wanted to add to that?
And I want to switch between those. So as I look at this, our data in our company is spread over many cloud environments. I, as a technologist, as a data scientist, I can bring all that together. I can write C++ or Scala or Python or R or pick your language to bring that together. But what I want to be able to do is focus on being a data scientist rather than an aggregator of data. This helps me get to that much more quickly. It also gets me to the point where I can sit with my customer. We can work through the data together. We can display the data. We can evaluate that data, and we can get the results very quickly. And what it does is it reduces those barriers, both for the customer and for me as somebody who's building and delivering models.
In fact, the thing Dan is talking about is what we call just start chatting. So because we automate all this out, the customer's first experience about 15 minutes after starting to work with us as an organization, is this kind of an experience in their cloud with all the technology running in their cloud under their control. And it can go, and they can go into analytics, they can go into document summarization, they can go into question answering, they can just chat like ChatGPT. But all of this is running in their environment with that simple interface immediately. That's what, Dan, by the way, am I lying about this? Like, you've been through this. Like, how much am I lying about this? Sounds too good to be true.
I do a lot of mentoring of data science within my company as we're building up these practices. And the barrier to entry, not only for the data scientists, even experienced data scientists, and with business partners, is I don't want to make a mistake. So we just sit down and we say, okay, let's just start asking questions. And let's just, as it says, let's just start chatting. And I think that's important because I think it's important that we get beyond having to go through a waterfall process and many, many months before we can give our customers and other data scientists a peek into the data. We're going to make lots of mistakes. Let's do it quickly. Each mistake we make, let's learn from it, and let's keep going with it. And the only way we're going to be able to do this is to work very closely and iterate quickly, and this allows us to do it.
And if you think about it, if a generative AI project takes 3 months, does everybody realize that 3 months back, Palm 2 didn't exist, Llama 2 didn't exist? Think about what the generative AI landscape was 3 months back. And it's actually getting faster. So if your generative AI projects are going to take more than an hour, you're already behind the curve. Yeah. Your first implementation of a generative AI project cannot take more than an hour. We guarantee 24 hours because we are little risk averse, but 24 hours is our guarantee. We don't get paid if the project is not live and running in 24 hours. But once you get it up there, that's not the end goal. The end goal is to start getting that user feedback. The user comes in and edits the response and says, it could be better. That just became few-shot learning. If they give us a few examples, that just becomes reinforcement learning or LoRa. But you are trying to get the technology in front of the users in a safe environment, in their cloud, for the data is not going outside of their cloud, as quickly as possible. And every interaction now makes the model better.
It's funny, we talk about this and exploring the data. One of the things that, if you've built any models over any period of time, spend a lot of time doing exploratory data analysis. Use Seaborn, use Matplotlib, use PyPlot, use a lot of different kinds of tools to create these heat maps, to create many different kinds of scatter plots and bar charts and everything else to try and prove that there's relationships with the data. And you go away for months and you do this, you come back to your user and say, this is what I think we have in the data, and they go, you're all wrong. You did this completely wrong. You go out for a few more months and you do the same thing again. What I like to be able to do is I like to be able to sit with the customer, drop a data set in, be able to do the analysis right with them in 5 or 10 minutes, and be able to actually show the value and make mistakes with the customer and help fix it. This is an interesting chart that we've put together. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, we talk about total compute cost. I can run a model from loading data to looking at the relationships to building and running 50, 60, 80 models, and it's going to cost me under $1. And I'm looking at data sets that have 200, 300 columns, 100,000, 500,000, 1 million rows, and it goes very quickly. And what's important about that is it's cheap. And one of the things I say to my customer is, you know, if we run this model again, I need you to pony up a quarter. That's 25 cents. Pretty soon they realize, okay, this isn't expensive. It's cheap to do this and do it very, very quickly. And it breaks down those barriers of being able to very quickly iterate and converge on something that adds value to your business.
And just
that's
to confirm,
a big deal.
That's not $50 per data set. That's
no,
$50
that's,
across
that's
6
across
months.
Working with Aible for 6 months and running many, many models, bringing in lots of different data sets, lots of different sizes of data sets. And so it's cheap. So I don't worry too much about it. When I use other tools, it's a whole lot more expensive. And so I have to make sure I have my budget available. I haven't spun through all of my cloud dollars. It makes it real cheap for me to be able to do this and do it very quickly.
And if you guys come by the engagement zone, we'll tell you how we do it. I'm going to leave you with a quick view of what we're doing. This is a video in partnership with Google but we, of course, do it with AWS and Microsoft as well. But essentially, everything we are talking about, just come to the booth, try it for yourself. The reason the costs are really low is because it's being run serverless in the customer's cloud. We don't charge per usage, so we actually incentivize to bring down the costs. One of our big concerns is, as we move to the world of AI, the amount of compute we are burning is actually going to have a significant impact on global warming. We don't have to be that inefficient. We don't have to keep the servers running all the time. There are better ways of doing this, and we just found the best way to prove that out is by having case studies from the likes of Ciena, United Health Group case studies up on our website, New York City Health and Hospitals, Marks and Spencer. These are all guys who have publicly talked about the cost structures they're getting. Come to the booth and check it out. Thank you so much. And Dan, thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.